So I'd say that's the upside to having a lot of the DSOs is it does send people our direction because people are intentionally looking for a private practice. So our marketing started to become like, hey, we're a private practice. It's like just coming outright and saying that and some of those, other little phrases to just let them know kind of what the experience will be like when they get here.
All right, it's time to talk with our featured guests, Dr. Whitney and Steve Sebree. Guys, how's it going?
Good.
Great. How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Thanks for asking. If you don't mind me asking, where are you located or where's your practice located right now?
Surprise, Arizona.
Just
Oh,
outside
wow.
Phoenix.
Okay, nice. So if we can start with a quick snapshot, what kind of practice are you running today and what makes it different in how it operates or serves patients?
Yeah, so we have a small private practice. It's myself and then I have an associate that we share the days. Our whole philosophy is very much just based around creating kind of a community environment, a family environment. We're surrounded by a lot of DSOs, good or bad, right? That's just kind of the environment that our community has. And there's a lot of feelings of that they're just a number, that they don't matter. It's just for the money, that sort of thing. So we strive a lot in focusing on just that patient experience, making them feel welcome, heard, part of our team, part of our family. Our marketing is around a lot of just come join us. We're here to listen. We're not, non-judgmental type thing. So really just creating an atmosphere that's welcoming to the patients that feels a little bit different, or even our setup in our office doesn't look like a typical dental office, right? So just trying to create an experience that feels a little bit different.
We have a somewhat of a unique location in terms of demographic and patient population. To the north of our practice, we have a very large retirement community. And a lot of those retirees, I'd say some are local, but I would say most of them are transplants coming out of state, snowbirds from the West Coast to Pacific Northwest, and a lot from the Midwest. And so you get a very unique cross section of patients in terms of expectations, experiences they've had over their entire life and their dental journeys with different dentists in different parts of the country. And so it kind of makes for a melting pot a little bit in terms of patient care, the types of patients, the patient population. And so it kind of is a little bit unique to this part of Greater Phoenix.
Backing up that, I would say, growing up, we're from Indiana, a small town. So when we do have a lot of those transplant patients, they're used to seeing the same dentist for 30 years. Their parents went there and then they went there. And so building these like long-term relationships because maybe there was only one dentist in town, right? So that is kind of where you're going. So creating that kind of sensation for them or that feeling, because that's what we're used to. That's what we grew up with. So trying to bring that here and kind of develop it in this big city, this big metropolitan area where you do feel like a number when you go a lot of places, trying to create that atmosphere so that they feel like they're connected to us.
Nice. Okay. Real quick, we're going to rewind a little bit because you said a lot of gold stuff, both of you. But one thing I wanted to ask is there any specific type of patients you do not see?
The majority of our patients are retirees.
Gotcha. So that's a real specific type of marketing. If you guys are like, hey, we kind of see everyone, but a specific type of everyone, if you know what I mean. Because you mentioned transplant patients and also, hey, this is for you. Like the marketing around here is come join us. We want to hear and we want to listen to you. So then how does that marketing look? How do you put that like on paper and verbiage and things like that to where they feel that?
We put exactly that. So when we first started, I had a mentor kind of helping me set things up and he's from the Midwest. He came out here and he's like, it's just different out here, right? And people are searching for that. And so when we first started, he said, I want you to get a really big mailer. I think it was like 9 by 11. It was long.
Yeah, it was a big.
And he said, I want you to put your face on it. And I want, people to get to know you. If they can see you, they're going to build that connection up front. And so it literally was a giant picture of my face that said, I can't wait to meet you. And so that was the marketing. And there are so many people that came in on that because they were like, you looked nice. It looked welcoming. It felt real. It wasn't a stock photo type thing. So it is an interesting type of marketing to attract those patients because they are really searching for that relationship more so than just the cheapest place in town type of thing.
Yeah, just literally putting what they're looking for, literally putting that on the paper or in an advertisement and saying, we're here to listen or, we'll give you a second opinion, because a lot of these patients go to a DSO or an office they feel is maybe not practicing the most ethical dental care. And so they go home and talk to their spouse and they're like, I didn't get the best vibes from that dentist. Let's see if we can find a second opinion. And, we always welcome those people in and give them our 2 cents and, obviously provide a level of care that's hopefully elevated, in terms of their experience. And if we can win them over that way, we've kind of won in a sense.
No, that's awesome. So then you mentioned right now there's a lot of DSOs around you, and that's good and bad. What's the good side on that?
People don't always have the best experience.
Okay.
So they're often looking for second opinions. So we always offer a free second opinion. I see this a lot. I've been to my dentist for the last 30 years. They didn't find anything. I went to a new dentist here and now I need $15,000 worth of work. Can I get a second opinion? And I think maybe they do need the work. Maybe they don't. It's not necessarily that they don't always need the work, but it's how it's delivered. It's how it's communicated. It's being careful in that initial meeting with them so they don't feel overwhelmed, so they don't feel like you're trying to sell them on something, that you're trying to take their money. I think just making them feel comfortable. And so I'd say that's the upside to having a lot of the DSOs is it does send people our direction because people are intentionally looking for a private practice. So our marketing started to become like, hey, we're a private practice. It's like just coming outright and saying that. And some of those, other little phrases to just let them know kind of what the experience will be like when they get here.
Yeah. Single doctor owner, private practice, family owned, those are the kind of the keywords that a lot of these people are looking for. And they don't really know it until they've kind of had the bad experience. And then they start to kind of question like, okay, what can I search for in terms of finding a good dental practice to work with? Because then it becomes a really difficult challenge for them because there's 50 dentists in a 2-mile radius. How do I pick the right one? So then they really start to dig down into like, okay, I need to be looking at like core values. I can't just rely on any dental practice. I need to find the one with the values that align with the type of care I'm looking for.
Yeah. Interesting. So would you guys say you're kind of banking on people to have bad experiences with DSOs?
Not banking on it. And there is always the struggle of obviously we can't compete with the DSO pricing, things like that. We don't get the advantages of, some of the discount on bulk ordering and, and all the different things that they do. But I think we know what we can offer. We know that while we might be a little bit more expensive, that they're going to get good quality care, that we've got an awesome team that's not rotating. We're obviously not hoping for any other offices to be doing badly or obviously treating patients badly, but it's just been our experience. That's just a lot of what we see and just trying to kind of fill that gap for people who are looking for something different.
Yeah, I would say to add on to that comment, it's hard to explain this to the patient, especially if they haven't really been burned in the past, but they may end up saving money in the long run. If they're trying to find the cheapest, most cost-effective way out of a painful situation, they may end up find themselves in the long run spending a whole lot more money. Being this close to Mexico, 2 hours or so drive from the border. I see it all the time in, local Facebook groups. People are all the time recommending, hey, you should just go to Mexico for that treatment. And we've had a lot of patients come into our practice who've gone to Mexico and spent $5,000 or $10,000 on some dental care when they should have spent 40 or 50. And now they're spending 60 or 70 or 80, in total. You can't lead with that, but we sometimes encounter that, in terms of patients that have had those bad experiences. And, so being able to just meet them wherever they're at on their dental journey and provide them the care that they need.
All right. No, interesting. So then how would you deliver that though? Because I know you said it's all about the delivery on how you present it. Because you can tell them like, hey, second opinion, you had a bad experience. It sucked over there. It's still going to cost a lot here, or it's still going to cost you here. What's the delivery principles that you guys have in mind?
I would say this is maybe one area I do excel in is connecting with the patient and figuring out what they want. Dentistry is expensive. It doesn't matter what they need done, and especially in today's world and the economy, everyone's struggling. So it's really in creating the value, which we hear that a lot, right? So you'll hear that on dental websites, you got to create the value, but it's like, how do you do that? And really listening to the patient, not talking as much, except for asking the right questions, right? Like, what are their goals? So if they do have failing work, is it painful? Is it not? But like really digging into like, why are they here? They chose to come in for some reason. They want that second opinion. I like to really dig into some of the questions about if they had a bad experience, if they don't mind sharing, what happened? What did that dentist do? What did that office do? So we're sure we don't do that. And then really just figuring out what their goals are, what they want. Because if it's what they want, you're not selling them on something, right? They already need it. They already want it. They're already aware that it's something they need to address. Then that's an easier conversation versus if you treatment plan everything in the back and you walk in your room and you just start figuring out all the work that they need, they may not be ready for that, right? So it's really just figuring out what they need, prioritizing it for them, making it affordable for them. We offer financing options, different things to try to make dental work affordable for patients, figuring out what's the most important thing to start with, and then just educating them on why they need it and maybe where the differences lie so that they can feel comfortable in their decision and they're willing to invest that money and understanding why they need to invest that money.
I would say a lot of times she will sometimes, especially with the new patient, an anxious patient has been to the dentist for a long time. They know they've got a lot of dental work and there's that fear factor, right? And she does a really good job of really kind of like gating the delivery of the full blown treatment. She knows what needs to be done. They know that there's probably going to be a lot of money spent rather than just laying it all out on the table the first visit. She'll hold back. She'll delay it. She'll preserve that information for a later appointment. And she'll just start to build that rapport and start to build that trust with the patient. And that really goes a long way because patients, whether they recognize it or not, I think they appreciate the fact that you're not just trying to make a quick sale, do same day treatment, get them in and out of the door and on to the next one. I think they appreciate the fact that, hey, let's take this kind of slow roll it. Let's take it one appointment at a time and cross those bridges when we need to.
We'll do a lot of follow-up consults if the treatment's large, especially like I like for them to bring spouses or significant others or people who might be involved in the decision, because that can be hard to relate to. So if they're there, they can hear why we need to do it. We can show them pictures, scans, all of this stuff. Then they understand and they're not trying to relay that information to them. So we'll do a lot of follow-up consults, complimentary to kind of go through the treatment plan presentation.
Okay, so you're kind of coaching them on a bigger yes, which also leads to like, hey, more appreciation for that yes, more understanding on that yes, why I'm saying yes, instead of just like, Steve and Whitney told me to say yes, kind of a thing. Interesting. I like that. So then, well, I'm just curious, how long are your new patients' visits then?
So they're anywhere from an hour and a half to 2 hours.
Oh, wow. Okay.
They're cleaning, obviously, with everything. And that's always been the great debate in the office, right? Because you want efficiency, you want, patients in, you've got hygienists meeting goals, you've got all the things. So it has always been something that comes up a lot in conversation, like, do we need to shorten it? And we've tried shortening it, but we lose who we are when we do that. And I know it's different. And I know it's weird that I spend 30 to 40 minutes chatting with the patient. That is a lot of doctor time. But if you can build that trust and rapport, we've just found that like the conversion on the new patients, you don't need to necessarily see as many new patients, which we're working obviously on new patient growth and that sort of thing as well. But if you can convert the ones that are there to really be doing comprehensive care, you don't necessarily have to see as many, right? So we've tried shortening it, we've gone back, and every time we go back to lengthening it because it's kind of what makes us us.
You mentioned you lose who we are. So when you try shortening it, what are some of the things where you're like, we lost that? That's the first thing that went out the door, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it feels rushed. I hate when I'm sitting down to really like engage in a conversation with a person and I see like my hygienist walking back and forth or my assistant, and they're like doing these in the hallway and you're like, I see you. I hate that because then I can't focus on the person in front of me. I hate knowing that I'm needed in the room next to me. Now, sure, if it's a quick thing, of course, or if we planned it, but we actually put blocks next to our new patient exams for the 30 minutes that I'm not to be bothered by anybody, just so I can focus on that new patient. And then not only do we feel it, they feel it. So in the times we have tried to shift or change it, we will hear comments from patients. They may not say, you didn't spend as much time with me today, but they'll say, boy, you're really busy today. Boy, you seem like you've really picked up. You've been really busy lately. So the whole experience, the staff starts to feel flustered, right? It's just like everything starts to unravel a little bit. And, and my team is great about holding us accountable too. When we try different things and we change it, they'll kind of be like, they know what our core values are and they know who we are. And they'll call us out if they're kind of like, hey, I feel like this isn't working. This is not kind of we are and what we're trying to accomplish and we're losing it a little bit. So then we'll kind of pivot and change.
It's a good team.
Yeah. They're a good team.
In terms of going back to core values, there's been things we've tried and implemented and the team has voiced their feedback and voiced their opinion on like, hey, is this really who we are? Is this who we want to be? Does this align with the core values? And the appointment times is one really good example of that. And, we're trying hard not to be like the DSOs, but we're slipping into a business model that reflects or mimics what the DSOs are doing. It's easy to kind of slide into that type of, arrangement and wanting to shorten things up, tighten things up, move a little faster, do things a little quicker. You may see more new patients, but the numbers at the end of the month may reflect lower conversion rates, lower new patient production numbers. And so it shows. It's usually pretty quickly to reflect in the financial side of things when you're the business owner and you're looking at things on a weekly or monthly or quarterly basis. You start to see things change a little bit and not the direction you want them to go.
No, that's interesting. So then new patients, how many new patients are you getting a month?
This month we got 71, but we made a lot of drastic changes in the last 6 months or so to improve that. So, in the past year, we used to get a lot more. And then I would say we went pretty steady for a couple of years at about 30 to 40. And again, if you're converting those, if you're, spending the time and kind of converting those into more comprehensive treatment, that was working. But we do have an associate, and there's times that his schedule's just kind of dead. So we're like, all right, we really need to focus this year on how do we kind of implement a more new patient flow, but not lose who we are in the process. So that's been a learning curve for sure, trying to fit in that many people and still have the time to spend with them, but also still have time to pick up a hand piece, obviously, and do the dental work. So it has been a bit of a challenge, but we're getting there.
Okay. So like in the 70s, and then it was consistent 30 to 40. Right now, and you can give me a range. You don't have to give me the exact price if you don't want to, but collections a month, what's that look like?
Well, since we've been having the change, we're about 120 to 130 a month. It's been all over the board, though, for the last 6 years. We had some amazing years where we were doing a lot of full mouth rehab, smile cases, where the collections were really high. We've had years that were really tough, some due to our own doing, some not. We do have 3 kids under the age of 5. So, kind of dips and flows and different things. But now we're kind of more in the 120, 130 range.
When you said because of your own doing, is it because of like, hey, we're scaling it back because of family or?
Yeah. So I was out obviously on maternity leaves back to back to back. COVID was in the middle of all of that. So we had COVID hit first. Then I had my first son. Then we had a year where everything ramped up and we had an awesome year. And then I had another child. So it's just been a cycle. But this year has really just been, since our last son was born, since we've been back, just really rebuilding and now really focusing on the businesses.
Yeah.
As you fix processes, new problems pop up. It's kind of like whack-a-mole, right? And you fix something and, you plug one hole and a new hole pops open. And so we've identified and fixed several problems and put processes in place. And we feel really good about those. And those collectively have given us a boost in those new patient numbers. And then now trying to backfill what was previously a kind of a small team, now trying to find those right team members. Generally speaking, just trying to grow the practice, both from a new patient perspective, as well as a team perspective, and trying to find the right team members to be involved and help us out, try to hit those goals that we need to hit. So now that we've fixed a lot of processes on the front end, we've got our new patient numbers up. Now we've got to plug things in the back end to make sure the treatment is being presented, it's being collected on, those new patient exams are being followed up on, and that treatment is being scheduled. And so there's just a lot of that now that we're in the process of fixing and getting more team members hired on. There's some other things that along the path of this journey now for about close to 7 years now that we've been on. We lost a really good treatment coordinator that we had who helped us kind of start and open the scratch practice that we have now today. She moved out of the state and we were sad to see her go. We still communicate with her regularly and check in to see how she's doing, ask her if she ever wants to come back. But she was a big part of our growth and a big part of hitting a lot of those numbers that we needed to hit, the financial goals. So now trying to kind of fill those shoes has been a challenge.
No, definitely. So then you mentioned systems. Is there like a system or workflow in your practice that gives you a clear operational advantage? Something you believe more practices should adopt, but don't?
Yeah, I guess we could call it a system. One of the big changes we made this year. So Steve does all of our marketing for the most part. So we have a few additional companies that help us, but he does the large majority of it. And just really trying to figure out, okay, why weren't we getting more new patients? What was like the hurdle, right? And so he's tweaking the ads and doing different things. But one thing we found was how we were answering the phone. It was how we were handling the questions being asked. We were losing so many opportunities. The other thing was just not answering the phone. So just making sure we're answering, right? But those are 2 things that we have worked really, really hard on, I would say, from spring to now. And we've seen a huge difference in not just training the front office staff and how to answer the phone, but anyone in the practice. We are a small team. So the assistants sometimes are running by and they don't have anything to do and the phone's ringing. Well, making sure they're answering those questions properly too, so that we're not losing those opportunities. That's made a really big difference in being able to answer, how much is it going to cost? Do you take my insurance type of questions right off the bat so that you don't lose those patients? And then again, just creating an office-wide policy of like just answering the phone. Like if that phone rings 3 times, someone better be answering it, right? And whether it's me and I'm pretending it's not me, or someone on the team, it's just like we all know no one's too good to not do any, particular job. We're all going to be here to help each other out. And we just saw our new patient numbers skyrocket when we started answering the questions properly and then just answering the phone.
Yeah, we invested a little bit on hiring a consultant or coach to help with kind of front desk initial interaction with, leads and new patients to call. And we knew that it was a problem, but we didn't really have the solution. So we had to figure out, okay, well, if we don't have the solution, who does? There's got to be somebody out there that can help train us. And so we were able to find that. He was really instrumental in helping us come up with a framework, which I appreciate.
It's not a script.
Not a script. I used to be in sales, and sales and scripting, it's it kind of has like very negative connotation in a dental practice, right? Any employee that works in a dental practice, when they hear of sales and scripts, they immediately are like, oh, it's the used cars, sales type of approach. That's not at all what we wanted to do. We wanted it to be a framework so that we could train everyone to convey the message in their own words, right? This is what we need to do. This is how we need to steer the conversation. You are the leader of the conversation. You're in the driver's seat. You're going to steer this conversation in the direction it needs to go in a very tactful, friendly, professional manner, which will ultimately lead us to the end result of booking that new patient and kind of navigating that process of, do you take my insurance? How much does the crown cost? What's it going to take to get my tooth extracted? That sort of thing.
If you don't mind me asking, who was your coach?
His name is Chris Beers. He's not in dental. I mean, that's one of the reasons I actually reached out to him. He runs his own business. I think it's called Front Desk. He's a physical therapist in Tennessee, I believe, but he's got sounds like, from what I understand, a pretty well-run clinic. Several physical therapists that work there, a pretty decent sized team. He trained them himself. He's trained other physical therapy offices, and then he's kind of branched out into now medical and dental, and he's providing his coaching services on a consulting type of basis. And he's just has some really good input and ideas and advice and unique ways to try to connect with people.
No, nice. Can you, if you don't mind, can I pick the brain and see two specific things? So for example, where was it when you're answering or you're listening maybe to the phone conversations, right? Or maybe you're answering or you're seeing how they answer. Where did you start seeing everything drop? No wonder this is why we're losing new patients. Oh, we have been getting people, but where did you start seeing that?
He would listen to the calls. So we have Mango Voice. And so you could go back and listen to all the calls. Patients would call and they would say, I've got Delta Dental. Do you accept it? And then our team member would be yes or no. And then if it was no, then it was just like, oh, okay. I'll call around, and I'm like, oh my gosh, what an opportunity, right? And, I do TMJ treatment. I do all sorts of stuff that's not even covered by dental insurance. So you don't want to get held up on that question right out of the gate because we don't even know what they're coming for, right? Is it something covered by insurance? Is it not? What do they need? Have they been to another dentist? There's just so many questions before you need to get to that one. But our team really struggled to navigate around it and not feel awkward. So Chris's framework has been great because it really is just kind of, again, building connection. And not to sound repetitive, but really trying to get to know the person on the other end. Why are they calling? Start asking questions. Sure. Well, yeah, let me get into seeing if we accept that insurance, but what are we seeing you for? What's going on? Tell me a little bit more about it. How do you shift them from that mindset? And so, we're all trying it and we were all a little bit awkward at first, as you kind of get but really it's just having a conversation with a person. And not that you don't answer the question. You never want to mislead someone. You just don't answer it out of the gate. Figure out what it is they need, build that connection, make that experience different on the phone so it doesn't feel so transactional, make them want to come in and notice that we're different. And then we can talk about the insurance. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. But if we don't, here's how you can still come to our practice. And here's ways that we can help make it affordable for you if you are out of network. So really just kind of shifting, I guess, the way the conversation goes. And to Steve's point, driving the conversation versus the patient driving the conversation right out of the gate.
Navigating around the insurance question, I think, is the biggest one because I think most people just don't know what else to ask. Insurance drives everything and it's becoming a bigger and bigger driver. And a lot of people have medical insurance. I would say not as many people have dental insurance, but they just know medical insurance or even their car insurance, any insurance, right? They think, okay, well, I'm paying this insurance bill every month, so you should give me something in return, right? And right, yeah, you're going to give this to me for free, right?
It's all paid for, right?
But they don't know what else to ask, and that's fine. They're trying to navigate the question because they're calling with a need. They have something that they need. They're calling a dental office. They took the time to pick up the phone, find us, maybe do some research on us, call us.
Right, they've already picked you. You just have, kind of win them over.
Right. I will tell patients even on the phone. I said, you may have out-of-network benefits that actually are better covers than your in-network benefits. We see that a lot, but we don't know until we kind of get into it. I said, it's such a convoluted system. There is no way to know exactly what your coverage is going to be until we're kind of in it. You know, odds are you're not going to get more than maybe a crown.
Yeah,
you know,
1,500 to 2,000 for most of them.
maybe.
Yeah.
And that's it. You know, so even if there is an extensive work to be done, it's not even a point of conversation, you know, because they're going to have to be out of pocket anyway or financing it somehow, you know. So many questions or so many things to discuss when insurance comes up that the patient doesn't even know about. And I think by design, it's a very complex system to navigate and to try to explain to a new patient over the phone, well, you know, you can't go down that path of, well, here's why you're not in contract with our office. You know, you got to have the right approach and the right kind of mindset and the right framework to start those conversations. But like Whitney said, once you learn, kind of teach yourself what that flow should be and kind of what questions to ask and when to ask them and how to steer it in a way that feels natural to you personally, then that's really where those new patients will just hop into the schedule and it's, you kind of get over that hurdle.
Interesting. So then you kind of lead with the benefits of like, oh, you don't even know, you might have much more covered than you realize. So then from not saying no, because you don't want to like just tell them no, you said, right? No, we don't take your insurance. Where does the point come to where you can say, we'll come in the office and we'll check it out, or how does that look?
Well, I mean, there are some that we are contracted with that we know right off the bat. Sometimes I tell patients a certain way, and then it's like, you know, our office manager's like, well, actually, this one has this weird off channel that, you know, and you're like, oh, okay. So I try carefully to not get into the nitty gritty of their insurance if I, you know, I'm talking to them. But we certainly tell them, you know, we're going to send you the new patient paperwork, fill out your insurance benefits. We're going to verify those ahead of time before the appointment so that you know what your out-of-pocket costs and expectations are going to be before you come in. And we do always let them know. So let's say that on a rare chance, there's occasionally a random plan that's like, you see, they're going to have no out-of-network benefits, that it's going to be full cost to them. Doesn't mean they can't come to our office, right? So we certainly hope that we've built that connection ahead of time, but we will do a follow-up call once we dig into it if we see that they're not, because we never want someone to come through the door and then realize, you know, that it's going to cost them much. That's not fair to them. So calling them ahead of time to explain kind of how their benefits work and then really getting into some of the insurance questions and saying, hey, you know, it doesn't mean you can't come to our office. It doesn't look like you're going to have any of those benefits. Here's what your benefit package looks like, you know, and then we offer in office plans and, you know, other things that it's like, you know, if you want to be a part of these, this is kind of what it looks like. So really just educating them on their options. I've had patients who are just like, I just want to use my insurance. That's fine. And then, you know, if it's a bigger plan, I've had patients where it's to Steve's point, it's way beyond what insurance is going to help. We'll work with them. Sometimes we'll give them the insurance write-offs as if we were in network. Sometimes it's like, well, your insurance was going to give you $2,000. We'll take $2,000 off the treatment. So you're still getting some of that benefit. If you want to use that benefit to go get a cleaning in office somewhere, you know, to just try to feel like you're working with them, right? Finding a solution for them as a team and not that they're on their own in this island trying to figure this all out. You know, we like to kind of dig into it with them and figure out how do we make it affordable for them.
Yeah. I like that because I feel like if I didn't know, like you guys are saying, and Steve, like how you mentioned, like, what are you going to cover? Because I have medical insurance and they don't even have dental insurance. But you guiding me through that process and breaking it down to me, like I'm a third grader, will be super helpful for me. If you did that to me, at least I'm thinking of myself. So if you're doing it to someone like, let me break your insurance down in a simple form. And if you can do this, you can. If you can't, don't worry. You can go somewhere else. I'm always going to think about you. Even if I decide to go to someone else, I'm going to be like, they were more thorough. They were more easier. They took their time to explain this to me. And if I have another question, I'm going to go to you. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Kind of a thing.
You'll occasionally maybe lose the patient on the front end, but they'll call back and they'll end up booking with you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. I liked it a lot. I want to rewind a little bit. You mentioned where there's days you have to come in or you don't like being rushed. I'm assuming both of you don't like being rushed, right? With anything or procedure or anything like that. But there's days where it's inevitable, right? Like something's happening. I feel like you would have to come in sharp almost every day, thinking like, okay, I have to spend my 40 minutes with this patient, work with this patient, give them my all. What happens on the days you don't come in sharp?
Yeah, well, you fake it. No. I love my patients, don't get me wrong. The restorative patients, but in our practice, like the new patient is kind of usually the top priority, right? This is their first experience there. Some of these patients have been with me for years. They know me. If maybe it's not my best day ever, is they, you know our kids, know our whole family type of thing. So I feel like, they're going to give you a little more grace. They're going to give you a little more understanding if you're 10 minutes late into their appointment. Then someone who's brand new, they never met you. This is, your first date, your interview process, right? We always kind of try to prioritize that first new patient experience kind of over the other things. Now, obviously, you do your very best to be on it and leave the stuff at home that's, and keep your mind clear and be with the patient. Does that mean I achieve that every day? Probably not, but I definitely certainly try my hardest to just give the person in that moment my attention. And that goes back to not feeling rushed. Like, I don't like the distractions. I like being able to give each individual person my time when they've taken their time out of their day to come be with me. And there's something that they need and something they need my help on. So I try to remind myself that, even if I get flustered or I'm coming in the back and I'm tired, we do have young kids at home, but it's just like, just reminding yourself that you have something that they need and you can help them with it and that it matters.
No, that's good. I like that a lot. What about you, Steve?
Since I'm not a dentist, not a clinician, so I don't necessarily have a lot of patient-facing work to do, we do try to be very cognizant of the fact that stuff at home stays at home, stuff at work stays at work, try to kind of compartmentalize that as much as possible and be present. So when we're here at work, be professional, be present, and care about the team and care about each other and care about the patients that are in the chairs, and I think that goes a long way in terms of people feeling that and people getting a sense of trying not to rush them out the door, but just being mindful and being present during the day, during the work day, and whatever happens outside of work, we just try to leave it alone, ignore it while we're here and address the challenges of whatever that work day has, because it will always have something. So
Yeah.
wait. And then when we're off work, work can wait.
I would say that the upside is we have we're kind of sitting in it now. And we always call it the bull pit. It's just like where the doctor's desks are. And so sometimes it's just, we come back here, decompress, shut the door, take a minute, and then we go back out. And you got your smile on the face on, you're ready to take it on.
Put some fires out, go back at it.
No, that's good. You bring up something really interesting, Steve, working with your spouse. We've had many interviews where they're together and then they say like, yeah, we talk about work all the time. We don't make it like a thing where it's weird if we bring it home. Then we have somewhere like, hey, at 5 or 6, when we're out the door, we never bring it up. But what happens when life comes into work? How do you guys handle that? Meaning like, I know you're best friends, you love each other, but there's times where it's like, did you really have to do that? Yeah, I had to do that. And then you come into work and you kind of feel that tension. Can you put that away and say like, well, we're going to compartmentalize that and get to work and show up for our team because we're the parents of our team? Or is it more like in the moment you're like, you still haven't apologized and, I'm trying to be nice here kind of a thing? How does that work?
I would say we are very good at compartmentalizing when we are here, both of us. So our team, I don't think would ever know. But there are times when we are back here alone where it might be like, I'm sorry I said that. I'm sorry I did that. Never in front of the team, never for them to see. Yeah, we will totally fake it in front of them, full transparency, if that were the case. But we don't argue too much. So it's a rare occasion. But yeah, if there ever is anything, then it's usually a quick apology in the back and move on.
It just happened the other day where it was a quiet drive to work and it was something that I did. And the drive started off with me being upset. And then by the end of the drive, I was a little ashamed of what I had said and done. And I made sure to, before the workday got too far into it, made sure to, it was just her and I alone, and apologize and, set the record straight and, let her know that it meant something to me and I felt bad. And, I wanted to let her know that. So we try to do good about it, not coming into work angry and not going to bed angry, very open communication and, trying to just be mindful of each other and know that we both have the best intentions. And I feel like I do a little more apologizing than she does. She needs to. So
no, that's good. So a key thing you mentioned, I think that like a light bulb moment is you don't let the workday go too long, right? Because then our own minds can just, you know what I mean? Like they just play games on us. Sometimes we're like, did you do that on purpose? And like, no, I'm just breathing like normally, right? Kind of a thing. And so you don't let it go too long. So would you say, Steve, specifically with that scenario, what are the qualities you think someone should have if they feel like that happens too often?
I think just the open communication of talking through feelings, talking through what's going on between your ears, and trying to get those emotions out and your thoughts out, whether or not they're accurate thoughts or just assumptions. It is sometimes hard to try to think, well, I'm sure this she had the best intention. I'm sure she didn't do that in a way that sounded or like it felt, I think from my perspective, just being able to talk openly about, hey, like, I didn't like what you said, or I would like to spend a little more time with you. Or, I think just getting out of the weeds of, you can get so down into like the nitty gritty of work and passing each other in the house and feeling like roommates and less like spouse, if you can't communicate, or if you're losing the communication aspect, or if that's was something that you never really had, I think that's where every breakdown occurs, is just lack of communication. So I think the fact that we are good communicators is kind of the glue that holds it all together. We've worked through a lot of issues over the years and through communication.
Yeah. And we get that question all, like, people, like our associates are always like, you guys just like work so well together. You guys are together all day, every day. For us, we've always been best friends. We've always communicated well. We've built these businesses together. We have another business that we do as well. And it's like we do everything in life together. And the times that we have frequent where things are maybe picking up, where we find we're getting nitpicky, most of the time it's because you're tired, right? You're burnt out, whether work's wearing it down, kids are wearing it down, the combination of all of it. So sometimes just taking a break, taking some you time and some me time, and, just doing different things that kind of refills your cup and gives you some energy so that you feel like you're kind of back to being you again. I find that when we are feeling stressed at work or tension with each other, it's most of the time just because we're both burnt out.
No, but that's good. That's a lot of humility. You know what I mean? To be able to do that and respect too. So that's really good. One of the final questions I want to ask, it's the hardest lesson question. It's, what's a painful mistake or failure you went through in your practice that's something you wouldn't want to repeat, but you're glad it happened?
So when we started our practice, we had the awesome treatment coordinator. I hate to even call her treatment coordinator. She was our everything, right? It was just me, him, her. And she took a leap of faith. She had been with well-established, very successful dentists, and she was coming with a nobody who had just a dream of building something. And she helped us build our practice, and we built it around her and her skill set. And she was phenomenal at what she did. And it made our practice grow and thrive. And it still grew. But the problem was the day she decided she was moving, you have an entire practice built around one person, and it's not you. Yes, I was the dentist. Yes, people liked me. But when it came to truly converting treatment, it was solely dependent mainly on her. And so when she left, while we still had awesome team members and great support, we lost like that key component, and we saw like a drastic shift immediately. It has haunted us for quite some time now, been an awesome learning experience, right? So never do that. So anyone listening, don't ever build your practice around someone that's not yourself, because life happens, right? No matter how much they care about you, love you, want to be with you, like things happen and people move on and do different things. And so for us, I'm so glad we did, because we wouldn't be where we are today without her. I mean, she helped us create this business, and I learned so much from her. And so a lot of the things that we're able to implement is just things I did know. She had taught me over time. I just hadn't started implementing them myself. So it pushed me to grow. It pushed me to challenge myself and offer a lot of those same things that she was in communication and how to connect with patients and convert treatment. And it also, like I said, we have some awesome staff members that have helped us with just getting processes in place. Things were going so well that you kind of skip over processes. You kind of skip over all the things because you're doing great, right?
Yeah.
And when you're not, you quickly realize these holes that need to be fixed and some things that need to be buttoned up. And we have another awesome staff member now who has just helped us tremendously create organization processes, create a business that's sustainable on its own. That doesn't depend solely on me, that doesn't depend solely on her. That's just really trying to create something that can operate on its own, regardless of what kind of life brings at it. So it was a hard lesson to learn. It definitely affected us financially for a while, emotionally for a while, but it was also needed. At some point that was bound to happen. And we really needed that growth phase that really challenged us and pushed us to kind of do the things we should have done from the get-go.
I would agree with that. She moved. And like I said, we're still on good terms. It didn't end poorly with her, but when she moved and left, and we were trying to figure things out from that point forward to figure out, okay, how do we get someone in that position and fill those big shoes, the big spot that was missing? You immediately start to think of, okay, we need processes. Then why can't we figure out the processes that we need to implement immediately. Like, this can't be that hard. And then I started to go down the path of like, McDonald's location can run with 5 teenagers. Like, why can't we figure this out? She's a doctor and, we're both educated. Like, it became a frustrating process and a kind of a frustrating experience in terms of like realizing that we thought we had a successful business. Turns out we had something a little bit different than that. And so then realizing, okay, now we need to find the right people, process-oriented people. We've had a reasonable amount of success in hiring employees who've spent a good majority of their career in DSOs because they're very process-driven, very process-oriented people. And they can help you implement some of those new processes. They like the structure. They like the organization. That's what they're used to. And so coming to a private practice that's family owned and we just kind of go on a day-to-day basis, that doesn't bode well for a healthy, striving business. So it was definitely a tough experience and it's definitely made us transform things and change things, but for the better. And in the long run, it's definitely setting us up for actually building a business that runs on processes, that's organized and it's repeatable, it's robust, that can thrive. And hopefully, we can get it to the point where you can kind of have anybody in those positions to some extent. And it's so well run and it's so organized. There's so many processes that we won't be as reliant on the exact team member to help us achieve our goals.
I like that. I like this lesson. It's really important. Last question. Thinking about how long have you been open for?
6.5 years.
6.5 years. So thinking about from the moment you two decided, like had that conversation and like, I think we should open up our own place, right? From that moment till today, if you can tell that Steve and then that Whitney, this is a piece of advice. Doesn't have to be business related. It can be about kids. It can be about your family life. It can be about anything. What would you want to tell them?
I think that I would tell myself to just give myself a little grace. I think it gets really easy to be really hard on yourself. I see us both getting caught up in that where you're just like, we could be doing better, right? We could be, and you're constantly looking, well, at least we are. That's kind of how we're driven, just to grow and change and challenge ourselves. And those things are great. But in that process, you can get really hard on yourself and feel like you're failing and feel like you haven't accomplished anything. And there's times that I have to stop myself and remember, like, there was no walls when we started this, right? Like, this was just an empty space. We had no patience. We had no idea what we were doing. I remember booking our first patient while we were at brunch one day, or a patient calling on a Sunday, and you're like, sure, I'll drive there right now, right? You're like, I'll be your doctor. I'll see you at 7 p.m., right? So just remembering, it's easy to forget what you've built, what you've grown, and how far you have come. And I think it's really hard, full transparency, just being a mom, a dentist, and an owner. Those roles are all challenging in and of themselves. And you combine all of it, it can be overwhelming at times. And it's really easy to feel guilty if you're not working on the business and you're spending time with your kids, but your business needs you, or feeling guilty because you're not home with your kids and they're like, Mom, where are you? So it's just this constant juggling act of figuring out how to balance life and how to make sure you're doing both of those things that are important to you, but just giving yourself some grace while you go through it, because you're going to screw up and you're going to mess up, and it doesn't mean you're a failure. You just got to keep growing and learning from those experiences.
Nice.
I definitely agree with everything she just said. And to add to that, you don't know what you don't know. And getting into business, I myself didn't have any sort of business experience. Had never really been exposed to business ownership. It was very foreign to me, but I always kind of felt like that's what I wanted to do. So I had a different career coming into the marriage, and even in the early years of our marriage, and eventually was able to quit and go full time with the practice. But I didn't realize how long it would take to make changes, to see results, and to build the business. I just kind of had this vision or anticipation or expectation of, hey, we'll open, we'll see patients, we'll start generating revenue, we'll probably have a bunch of money in a few years, we'll be doing just fine, not realizing that there's a lot of ebbs and flows, there's a lot of ups and downs, there's a lot of adventure and unexpected scenarios that pop up, and you just have to figure out how to navigate those. But if I could go back and tell my younger self that just chip away a day at a time, it's kind of a brick by brick situation. You build it slowly. There's no silver bullet that's going to get you to the end goal. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of patience, a lot of commitment, and just a lot of keeping the end goal in mind. But one of the things I try to tell myself is lies falling in love with the process. Don't get so caught up on the end goal, because then when you reach that end goal and maybe it isn't exactly what you expected, but you're still there, you're probably going to be pretty disappointed. But if you can fall in love with the process along the way and learn to enjoy that process and learn to enjoy working through the challenges and the scenarios and just figuring it out. That was a big learning lesson for me, just being able to see that coming up on 7 years is going to be a decade here pretty soon. And I'm definitely not where I thought we would be, but I don't think anybody is. That's not the norm. So it's been a little bit of a mental shift and an adjustment for me.
Yeah, no, definitely. Beautiful. Thank you guys so much for being with us. It's been a pleasure. But before we say goodbye, can you tell our listeners where they can find you?
Yeah. Breeze Dental, breezedental.com. And don't get that confused with the normal spelling of Breeze, B-R-E-E-Z. Ours is B-R-E-E-Z dental.com. So a little spinoff of our last name, but breezedental.com. We're in Surprise, Arizona. And yeah, we'd love to have new patients if you guys want to come check us out and come meet Dr. Sebree, not myself.
Nice. Awesome. So that's all going to be in the show notes below. So thank you so much for being with us, Whitney and Steve, and we'll hear from you soon.
That's
Pleasure.
great.
Thank you.
Thank you.